Welcome back, Waynesider family, to a place where we don't just report the news, we feel it, we analyze the soul of this industry. Tonight, we're not just discussing a headline, we're dissecting a seismic event that has cracked the very foundation of the WWE landscape. The air backstage has shifted from its usual buzz of competition to a chilling, deafening silence, a silence born from a single, staggering act. This is a story of power, of legacy, of a family dynasty that has defined this business for generations. It is a story that feels almost Shakespearean in its tragedy, a tale of throne rooms and whispered betrayals. We must begin not with the explosion, but with the long, slow burn that made it inevitable, the gathering storm clouds we all saw but never believed would actually break. To understand the shock, we must first understand the man at the center of it all, the cerebral assassin, the game, Triple H. This is a man who clawed and fought and politicked his way to the top of the mountain, a man who understood the intricate dance of power within WWE long before he ever held an executive title. His journey from rebellious blue blood to COO to head of creative was a masterclass in evolution, in adapting to survive and then to conquer. He earned his stripes not just through marriage into the McMahon family, but through a ruthless, undeniable IQ for the business itself. He became the patriarch, the final word, the man who carried the weight of the entire company on his shoulders every single day. This was a crown he fought for, a crown he cherished, a crown he believed was his by right of conquest and capability. And then, there is the other side of that coin, the privilege of legacy. To be born into the first family of sports entertainment is to be born under a microscope, with expectations heavier than any championship gold. It is a life of immense opportunity, but also of immense, suffocating pressure, a constant, unspoken demand to be worthy of the name you carry. Every success is scrutinized, every failure magnified 1,000 times over. We have watched this dynamic play out for years, the public struggles, the personal battles, the triumphant returns, and the heartbreaking setbacks. It is a story we all thought we knew, a narrative of a father figure guiding his heir through the turbulent waters of the family business, a story of eventual, inevitable succession. Please like, share and subscribe for more WWE content. But beneath that public narrative of guidance and support, there were always whispers, weren't there? The silent resentment that can fester when nepotism is the specter haunting every accomplishment. The unspoken question of whether a position was earned or simply given. For a self-made man like Triple H, a man who built his reputation on merit and sheer force of will, that must have been a constant, grating irritation. Could he ever truly see a born heir as his equal? Could he ever trust that their decisions were for the good of the business, and not for the glory of their name? This silent tension, this cold war of ideologies between earned power and inherited right, has been the backdrop of every decision, every meeting, every show for years. The pressure cooker was always on, the temperature slowly rising with every passing week. The insane demands of a live television product, the relentless travel, the critical eyes of shareholders and a global fanbase, this environment would strain any relationship, let alone one so complex and publicly scrutinized. We saw the cracks, subtle though they were, a tightened jaw during a promo, a slightly too long pause in a backstage interview, a narrative on television that felt a little too on the nose. Art imitating life, or perhaps life beginning to scream. Through the art, the locker room, those historians of backstage nuance, they felt it too, the shifting allegiances, the careful choosing of words when speaking to either camp. They knew a storm was coming. They just didn't know when it would hit, or how devastating it would be. And then, it happened. Not with a whimper, but with a world-altering bang that reverberated through the entire WWE ecosystem. In the cold, sterile environment of a corporate office, not in the heated passion of the ring, the game made his move. The massive firing, the shocking termination that sent the locker room into utter chaos, was not directed at a disgruntled mid-carder or a backstage producer. It was aimed at the heart of the dynasty itself. In a move that can only be described as a brutal, corporate coup, Triple H, the man who married into the throne, executed the heir to it. The silence that followed the announcement wasn't just shock, it was the sound of history being rewritten in real time, the sound of a legacy being fractured. The attack, when it came, was so clinical, so cold, so utterly devoid of the emotional fire we see on television. This was not a pedigree on the stage. This was a signature on a document, a quiet conversation with legal and HR, a security escort out of the building. And that is what makes it so profoundly more devastating. This was business, not personal. which is the most personal thing of all. It was a message, not just to one person, but to everyone in the company: no one is safe. No name, no legacy, no bloodline is bigger than the bottom line. The king had protected his kingdom by severing its presumed future, an act of breathtaking, brutal realpolitik that redefines the meaning of loyalty in WWE. The immediate aftermath backstage was pure, unadulterated chaos, but a silent, terrified chaos. Talent and crew alike moved through the halls like ghosts, speaking in hushed tones, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and morbid fascination. Phones blew up not with celebration, but with a frantic, desperate need for information. Is it true? How did it happen? Who's next? The trust that is so vital in an environment this high pressure evaporated in an instant. If that person can be gone with a single decision, what safety does anyone else have? The locker room, a society built on unspoken rules and hierarchies, found its very core shaken. Alliances were questioned, friendships felt suddenly fragile. The whispers now are not about creative plans or who's going over at the next premium live event. The whispers are about survival. They are about reading the new landscape of power and understanding that the old rules are gone, burned away in a single, stunning act. There is a palpable fear of saying the wrong thing to the wrong person, a fear that any dissent, any opinion, could be your last. The patriarchy of Triple H is now absolute, unquestioned, and enforced with a new, terrifying finality. The man who once led Evolution now stands entirely alone at the top of the food chain, and everyone beneath him is simply trying to avoid becoming prey. And what of the family's WWE legacy? This is not just a corporate firing, it is a familial earthquake. The McMahon name is synonymous with WWE, its bloodline the very river that has run through the heart of this company for decades. This act, this decision by the man who joined that family, fundamentally alters that legacy. It shifts the narrative from one of seamless, generational transition to one of conflict, betrayal, and perhaps even a hostile takeover. The story is no longer about a united front, but about a civil war fought in boardrooms and through termination papers. The family table, always a symbol of both power and unity, now has a permanent, empty chair, a ghost that will haunt every future decision. This forces us to ask a heartbreaking question: in the end, what matters more? Blood or business? For Triple H, the answer, in this staggering decision, appears to be devastatingly clear. The business, his vision for WWE, the empire he helped build and now solely guides, was paramount. It is a ruthless calculus that places the health of the kingdom over the life of the prince. It is the ultimate expression of the game, persona, a character he once played on television now fully manifested into corporate reality. The man is the persona, and the persona would sooner set the world on fire than let someone else hold the match. The betrayal here is so multifaceted, so deeply layered, that it's difficult to even comprehend. It is a betrayal of family trust, a shattering of the implicit understanding that blood protects blood. It is a betrayal of the mentor-protege relationship, the breaking of a bond that was supposed to be about guidance and protection. And on a human level, it is just a profound, personal betrayal that will leave scars no public statement can ever hope to heal. This isn't a wrestling angle that can be resolved with a handshake or a Hell in a Cell match. This is real life, with real consequences, and real, devastating emotional wreckage. We are left to reflect on the very nature of trust within the walls of WWE. It is a currency more valuable than any championship, and it has just been dramatically devalued. How can anyone truly trust the hierarchy now? How can a talent sit across from Triple H and believe in a promised future, when the future that was once guaranteed could be erased in an instant? The broken trust extends beyond the individuals involved. It has become a systemic infection within the company's culture. The feeling is that we are all now just pieces on a chessboard, and the game has just demonstrated he is willing to sacrifice even the most valuable pieces to protect his king. The emotional fallout is a black hole, sucking in everything around it. The silence from the extended family members is deafening, a telltale sign of the shock and paralysis that has taken hold. What can you even say? This is a schism that goes beyond professional disagreement. It is a tear in the fabric of a family. The holidays, the private gatherings, the shared history, all of it is now colored by this one, unforgivable act. The personal and the professional have collided with catastrophic force, and the debris field is littered with broken relationships and shattered expectations. For the fans, this is a surreal moment. We have been invited so deeply into the lives of these real-life characters that a moment like this doesn't feel like distant corporate news. It feels personal. We feel the whiplash, the confusion, the sadness. We are forced to re-evaluate everything we thought we knew about the people we watch every week. The man we cheered as the visionary savior of WWE creative now also wears the crown of a ruthless tyrant who exiled his own. It is a complicated, messy, and deeply human story that challenges our fandom in ways we never expected. As the initial shock begins to settle, the question of, what's next, looms larger than any WrestleMania main event. This is not an ending, it is a violent, dramatic new beginning for WWE. The power structure is now unequivocally clear, but absolute power often leads to absolute paranoia. Who will dare to speak up? Who will become the new voice of dissent? And what happens when the exiled heir, with nothing left to lose, decides to answer this corporate attack not with lawyers, but with the tools of our business, with a microphone, and with a vendetta that will be played out in front of the entire world? The legacy of this day will be written in the history books of WWE not as a simple personnel change, but as the day the game truly changed. It is the day the corporate suit proved to be a more effective weapon than a sledgehammer. It is the day familial loyalty was sacrificed on the altar of business preservation. The echoes of this decision will be felt for years, perhaps decades, to come. It is a scar on the soul of the company, a permanent reminder that in the quest for power, even the strongest bonds of blood can be broken. In the end, this is a tragedy in the purest sense. It is the story of a great man, perhaps believing his ruthless action was for the greater good, making a decision that will forever define him not just as an executive but as a man. It is the story of a legacy, generations in the making, being splintered in a single afternoon. It is a story of betrayal so deep that the word itself feels insufficient. And as we try to make sense of it all, we are left with a hollow feeling, a reminder that the most shocking moments aren't always the ones scripted for our entertainment. Sometimes, the most devastating attacks happen when the cameras are off, and all that's left is the broken trust, and the blood.